Okay. So we open up with a large dirigible, common to the Dawnhammer ranks. It's their main mode of transportation. And it's coming just over a massive wall, both in height and width and breadth, circling a large region. And you're coming out to the south. The sun has come up a few hours ago, and most of the crew has woken up and is walking along the main decks of this dirigible. You four can be anywhere you like, but from just about any vantage point, you can look out and see your surroundings turning from the more urban and more populated regions within the circle of the wall, and you're entering the more wild frontiers of the outside, larger pine trees and almost no structures at all unless you know exactly where you're flying to. So I will open this up to Sam first. Tell us your character's name, give us a little description, and tell us where he is on the dirigible.
Callum Carter, normally known as Brother Carter, is currently deep in the lower area of the dirigible in some sort of small chapel. He's kneeling before the altar, muttering something to himself, and it's clearly visible to anyone else who's here. His large bald scalp with 4 scars clear across to the back of his neck that he's kind of moving back and forth, mumbling something to himself. Anyone normally would think that it's a prayer, but it's really not. It's just him repeating a set of names over and over again. There's Michael, Kathy, Margaret, just a series of names over again. And once he's done with the series of names, he gets up, and as traditional for himself, he pours some kind of liquid out of a flask onto the altar, probably to the disgust of whatever priest normally takes care of this area.
Awesome. Sorry, I actually have that character name. Where is Meg Lawson? What does she look like, and what is she doing?
Meg's an early riser by habit and is already up at the top deck, near the front of the dirigible, feeling the wind in her face. She's slight build, dark hair, but not to be underestimated. And she's got her eyes open, her hands idly rubbing across her rifle. Not really on edge, but not at ease either.
Okay, and Gareth Emerson Rook, aka the Rook.
The Rook is... he's standing at the entryway to the temple, and he's watching the war priest. And he's just kind of puffing on his pipe, watching him, leaning up against the door frame. And as he sees him pouring the alcohol onto the altar, he kind of strolls up next to him and reaches in his pocket and flips a coin onto the altar, looks over at the war priest, nods at him, and turns and exits the temple. And as he does, he walks out to the edge and steps up within about 2 feet of the edge and looks out And for just long enough, because even to this day, as many times as he's been on a dirigible, the heights always give him the willies. And actually, as his head starts to spin, he kind of steps back and spins around and just sort of reaches in and pulls out a flask and then takes a swig off of it and puts it back. And then takes a long draft on his pipe as he waits for the priest to come out of the temple.
Before that interaction, last but not least, Callum Carter.
My character already went.
Oh, I'm sorry, I read it wrong. I don't have Chuck's character name. So, Chuck, who is your character? What does he look like, and where is he?
Dresses, I don't know if I'd necessarily say simply, but not a lot of flash or anything involved to him. Bald head, goatee. Um, he's on the edge of the dirigible. He almost kind of has a cloud about him right now. It's keeping everybody away from him. You can almost tell he's just not in the best of moods. Um, he only goes by the name of Mandrake. It is a nickname, but he doesn't really talk about his real name at all. Um, he is paying attention to people around him a little bit, but it just like I said, he's keeping that aura of attitude if he just doesn't want to be bothered right now.
Okay. And if Callum and Gareth were going to interact, do that now.
Callum, after seeing the coin being flipped and finishing his ritual, he walks outside to the edge and sees Rook there doing his impersonation of someone who's not afraid of heights. And he comes over and he pats him square on the back, probably from on high, since my character is about 6'2". He just kind of slams him in the back. Rook, how you holding up?
Just fine. You know me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm ready.
I know you are. We've trained for it. I'm looking forward to being out in the fields again. City life's not for me.
City life, wildlife, either life. That's where they send us. That's our job. Did you get the answer you were looking for in there?
I don't
You were
ask
very
for
earnest in your request. That was some fine wine you were pouring out, it looked like.
only the best for fallen friends. I don't ask for answers anymore. Not in the world we live in now.
Well, not from the deities.
And
There's answers out there, though.
And as you're speaking, interrupting your conversation, you hear a ding, ding, ding. And from your training, you would know that this is the daily roll, and you're expected to meet at a particular spot on the deck of the dirigible to hear from your superior. You're in the auxiliary, so I will leave this up to you. The auxiliary is not known for their exactly respect for the hierarchy per se. They're kind of looked at as the reservist, if you will. So you can all respond however you would like, but that is what's expected of you.
Well, time to head on up.
That damn bell. All right. As I kind of, you hear me crack my back, and it's like this old man with this gray beard. And he just sort of starts walking that way with a stiff walk in his legs, which always surprises you because he's pretty lithe for his age.
You see Mandrake kind of come out of his stance and take a deep breath, and kind of the attitude changes a little bit. And he kind of nods his head to the war priest and starts heading the line up.
Good to see you, Mindrake.
I kind of look at you and give you a little look of, sometimes I don't know how you hold faith in your gods.
It takes real effort nowadays.
And Rook just says, mm-hmm.
Meg sidles
Wonder
up.
Man. Sorry, go ahead.
Go on.
I was just going to be a little bit of a smarter and go, yep. Rook's always good for a couple words.
Meg sidles up, and she's almost annoyed at having been pulled from her reverie and watch.
And when you all do approach the side, with his back to the side rail of the dirigible facing inward, and you four line up in front of him, Commandant Jardeth looks out on you and just kind of shakes his head with his usual disparaging looks. Just, can't believe I'm dumping you off in the wild. I don't know whoever thought this would be a good idea. Well, listen, you're going home today. Going back to your village, Mulberry or whatever it's called. And you're going to find the same pile of pig shit and horse manure that was there when you left. The only difference is you're not going to have any Dawnhammers there to keep your pig shit and horse manure from getting torn up and thrown in your face by a bunch of Gloam-infested baddies. Anyway, I hope you're ready, because everyone's going to look to you to do something when that pig shit hits the fan. And I expect you to at least hold your own. I didn't spend months training you to have you die in the first week. So, when we get down there, keep your heads up, keep your eyes clear, look out, pay attention. You don't know what's happened since you left, and you don't know what the situation is. And as damned as I am to say it, I'm a little bit proud of you, townies. Most of you can actually hold a gun. That should stand for something. And then he turns around, kind of dismissing you as usual, and he puts his hands on the rail and kind of leans forward. And it wouldn't take a genius to know that this is a tough time for the entire kingdom, and the Dawnhammers are stretched. And he may not feel good about dumping you off somewhere, but that's what he's going to do. And so you just hear him blow out, and his mustache kind of wiggles to either side. And you're all there in the sunlight.
Meg leans over to Rook and kind of whispers, those rousing speeches. Gonna miss that little bugger and all his encouragement.
I think I felt a rise in my gut. Or maybe it's just I need to take a piss. It's one of those two.
Not into the wind.
No, not since I was a teenager. Wait. Nothing. Ignore that.
And as the wind blows across your faces, the rest of the day would pass fairly uneventfully. It wouldn't be too long now, only another couple hours. The sun would still be lit as the dirigible starts to descend slowly. As this town is just a few hours outside the wall, even by foot. So as you notice the dirigible descending, you'll know at this point that you would have to report to underneath the dirigible. That's where you use the drop ladders once the dirigible gets low enough. But there's still plenty of time to do anything you guys would need to do. If you think there's anything you might like to grab before the last airship of civilization leaves you in your small town of Mulberry, now would be the time. I'm sorry, and if not, you can just tell me that you make your way down to the exit ports.
Callum just grabs his backpack that was almost never fully unpacked in the first place, with everything in it, and just makes his way down to the ladders.
Yeah, and similarly, Rook is following him down, making sure to look at the steps before him as not to look out upon the height that they are still, even if they are descending.
Meg comes up behind you. Watch it. That one rung looks a little bit loose, you know.
That's why there's two. Mm-hmm.
And what you guys are going to find down there is your commandant, and you'll see this large-sized porthole, just a large hole basically in the bottom of the dirigible, and there's a huge roll of ladder on the side there. And he would look at you and say, "Well, are you ready?" And assuming nobody pees themselves here or into the wind, the dirigible would basically now be about 100 feet above the ground, and he would just use one of his feet, and he would really give it a shove, and the ladder would roll and just until you couldn't hear it anymore, all the way down. And you guys could start your descent. When you do, just give me a athletics check as you climb down.
14.
Okay, so everybody starts climbing down the ladder. Got to keep the names with each other. So Gareth just kind of goes first, and he's just like, he's like taking like 3 steps at a time. He must not be looking at the ground at all. Somehow,
Not
maybe
one bit.
I was like, well, that's interesting. The highest roll from the person who's terribly afraid of heights. You must really want to get down. So he shoots down the ladder, and just behind him is Mandrake with his carefully measured steps, 1 step at a time. Now, behind them, significantly, you would see Callum and Meg. They're definitely shaky in this. The auxiliary training allowed a certain amount of leeway in terms of dirigible entrance and exit because you're the auxiliary and not expected to get many rides on dirigibles. But if that class was recommended, they probably would have failed because they are shaking, like making the whole ladder kind of quiver as they make their way down slowly to the ground.
As soon as Callum hits the floor, he's like, "These damn ladders weren't made for someone my size." As he kind of rubs one of his knees, or my age.
Meg gets about maybe 6 feet above the ground, misses, and just kind of half slides, half falls the rest of the way down, gets a bit of rope burn. It's like, mother... Yes, rope, ladders, dirigibles, bloody... ground is good.
And at that moment, like as you're saying ground is good, you realize that a little bit of a following has kind of gathered. So this has unfortunately happened in front of 10 to 15 people. And the first one to step forward is this average height man, slick black hair with a beard and mustache. He wears a white handkerchief, which is the symbol of this particular locale's patriarchy, essentially a priest, a local priest. And you all are from here, and you would know him clearly as Father Theodore or Teddy Lawson. And actually, it's a coincidence that Meg's character has the last name as of right now. There was no pre-planning, so I will let Taylor tell me if she's related to Theodore.
It's a small town. That's my uncle.
Okay. So this is Uncle Theodore, and he will kind of grimace at you on the ground then and just say, "Oh, niece, my niece. Meg, please stand up, last hope of Mulberry."
Sorry. I mean, yes. Yes, stand up.
It is wonderful to see you all here. I have told the people that you would return to us and that you would be our salvation. We have been highly anticipating your return. Events in the town do need the attention of people with your capabilities.
Callum goes up to him and shakes his hand. He's like, Father Theodore, good to see you. You know, we're always here to help.
Yes, my son. It is good to see you. And he looks out to Gareth and says, "And you as well, sir."
And Rook's actually kind of turned sideways to him, and he's tapping out his pipe, and he's pinching out some tobacco, and you kind of hear him just half say "mm-hmm" as he plugs the tobacco in and begins to light it again.
Teddy, sorry.
He turns and sort of nods to him like, "I hear you."
And Teddy kind of stares. He expects this response from you, and he then more slowly turns to and just makes eye contact with you, Mandrake, and says, "Mandrake."
I chuckle a little bit and go, whatever. And I start walking away.
To which he rolls his eyes, but he turns to the people and says, "Behold, behold your friends. Our family has returned to us. They have returned as saviors from the Gloam. After I myself have gone out into it myself and saved you, the people, from the terrors of the night once, they have returned to do it again and again." He turns to you and he says, "Alas, there was an event. There was attacks from the woods. Werewolves, I've seen with my own eyes. We hunted them together, myself, my man," he points to the broad-shouldered man next to him, "and our own village members, Temperance and Deliverance, who I'm sure you recall. And he says, but though we were victorious, we now have Deliverance in the cells. She has been infected. And we need you to tell us what we should do. For I have said they need to be burnt, but the people shy from what needs to be done."
Okay, Father. Let's examine to see exactly how far the corruption's gone before we start building any pyres.
We have but a few nights before the full moon. I would hate to learn the hard way, but I will, of course, concede to the wishes of the auxiliary.
Can the auxiliary maybe have a bit of a powwow?
Oh, my niece, I apologize. I have been rude, and this is distasteful. Please, let us walk you back to your homes. You should all have time to recuperate from your much, I'm sure, hard and arduous training. Please, come with us.
And actually, it's at this point that Rook turns and levels his eyes with Teddy Lawson, and he says, "Padre, you're the local expert. You took responsibility for these two people. And under your watch, they've contracted Gloam settings." Oh no. We'll clean up the mess. Mm-hmm.
Teddy's going to grow stern with you, and he turns and he says, "My good man, they took on the responsibility of the village into their own hands. We all put our lives on the line that night. I do weep knowing that I could not save their souls in the end. Truly, I do. But it is not for me to decide. It is only for Charbula, the god of sacrifice. He is above the whole, he alone is above the pantheon, and he makes these decisions. You know where I stand on such things. Do not push this burden onto me."
Mm-hmm. As he turns and he just sort of walks over to where Mandrake, and I don't want to tell Mandrake where he went, but I would imagine he walked within earshot. But knowing that we're probably going to want to talk about this, I go walking over to Mandrake, puffing on my pipe, and then look over to Callum and Meg.
Callum would look over to the father. Is like, we will come find you shortly. We just need to rest and recuperate and talk amongst ourselves for a bit. Thank you again for your hospitality.
To which he gives a flourishing bow and then stands up and says, "My flock, we should leave them. They will find their way home. They are more than capable." And the crowd of people falls in tow behind Theodore Lawson as he walks back towards the main of the village.
So we're killing him straight away, right?
You're talking about your uncle?
Look, he's not always my favorite relative, but come on.
We
It's not
came here to
his
kill
fault.
Teddy and kick ass, and
Even though we suffer for him living, he has to suffer too.
All right, guys. We were trained to do certain things. Let's find out exactly what's happening here. But I'm not gonna lie, your uncle's not looking too great right now.
What's wrong with him?
I mean, he went out there too, and he's firmly blaming another human being. In my experience, that's not a great thing. I'm not saying, anything bad right now. I'm saying let's figure out what's happening before we start setting anyone on fire.
no, I'm saying it for you. Mm-hmm. I think he should have gone alone if he's the expert and shouldn't have,
Well, you and I both know how suicidal that idea is.
I mean, if they wanted to go, that's their own fault.
I'll grant you that, Meg. But I'm hoping. He said deliverance was in there.
And
I'm hoping.
He has both of them, and just so you know, he was speaking very specifically, because I wasn't sure if I made this clear, he was saying they were infected as werewolves.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
They're both good ladies, and I'm hoping they're fine. I'm hoping this is all one big misunderstanding, because, again, we're dealing with country. We all came from this place. It's a pretty country area. They don't know what's happening. So let's hope for the best, yeah? And expect the worst.
Fine. I suppose we ought to give him a chance and just see. Although I've still never forgiven Deliverance for that time when she pulled my hair and put it in the ink.
Kids will be kids. I don't think that's worth
18.
So as you turn, you'll be orientating yourself, just so you guys are aware. As you're talking, I think you'd kind of be figuring out again, like where you haven't been here in a year, but you're out where the grain silo used to be in the fields. You don't see the grain silo anymore, but you do see the normal road that runs right past the very straight wall of Mulberry. Mulberry has a triangular setup. It's like a perfect triangle. So the broadest side runs along the river, and then one of the shorter sides runs along the road, and then the other shorter side runs across the woods. And that's what forms the triangle of this town. And the entrance is down by the river, so you would take the main road in. So you'll all be kind of figuring that out as you're standing here, and by the time you're done talking, I think you'll know exactly where you are. Would you guys like to head in towards the entrance to the village?
Yeah, I would say we're heading towards the village. At this point, I probably would have brought up the topic of how exactly do we test for a werewolf for lycanthropy again? Do they burn when you throw silver at them? I can't remember exactly.
I think you scratched their belly.
I'm a bit too old to be scratching a young lady's belly right now.
No, you throw a ball, and if they chase after it.
Yeah. I think Mandrake has it.
If somebody has, I mean, while you were training at the auxiliary, they would definitely teach monster lore classes, so to speak. So if somebody has, I guess it would be
medicine.
Yeah, I could see medicine, or I could see history being applicable here.
I'll give history a shot if you want to give medicine a shot. Nice. That's 17 for history.
Okay. Yeah, so I think you took some training in this, and you would know for sure that, yes, werewolves are immune to most types of damage other than by silver weapons, but that even in their human form, their skin reacts negatively, although not quite as severely as when they are in their werewolf form. You'd also know things like they are sensitive to the full moon, and basically many things that you'd already associate with werewolf lore. Sorry. And with 15 medicine, you would know that there is no cure for a werewolf infection. If she is indeed infected as a werewolf, then she would have to either be set free as a monster or killed, which would be the duty of the auxiliary. You would also know that the only way to become infected would be to be bit by her. So people around her wouldn't necessarily be susceptible unless they've been harmed.
Okay then. So Callum's kind of rummaging through one of his coin purse, and he's, 2 silver pieces. Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you. I got allergies.
Yeah, I hear you. Back in Mulberry, it's I think it's the farms.
Yes.
Yeah, you call it hay fever.
Yeah, you don't get that very much in the city.
I thought it was the mulberry bushes.
Yeah, the lot of it.
Mm-hmm. So, I got the silver pieces. What do you say we go figure out what's happening with these 2 young ladies? Yeah?
I agree.
It's a good first step.
Excellent. So you guys would be kind of bustling your way up the main road. And as you come in to enter, you'd see lots of the village folk that you know. John Fisher, Eliza Russell, Mercy Russell, all these common people with large families, many cousins, people that you've known your whole life. And they sort of stop every once in a while when they see you. They have their baskets and they'll kind of hold up for a moment. It's been a while. And you seem to carry yourselves with a different sort of confidence. And it definitely catches attention. So nobody really gets in your way. And if you'd like to walk essentially straight up to what they call a cathedral, but which somebody within the walls would never consider more than, a small chapel, essentially. That is where Teddy had said he had them locked up in their cells. And so that's where you would be doing any investigation. Otherwise, if you wanted to speak to other people to get their opinion, essentially anywhere you'd like to go. Whatever you'd expect to find in a small frontier town, you'd probably find here: blacksmithing, leatherworking, small cottages and houses within the walls, farmhouses just outside the walls. Basically, you can use your imagination.
Yeah, beyond the minor nod or smile at certain friendly people that Rook still considers friends, he doesn't stop to talk to anyone. He's got a purpose at this point, and he's moving as such. So as he reaches the threshold, he stops for a second, and turns and looks out upon as everyone is coming in, and he allows them to file in first. As he kind of looks out back, scanning around at anyone that might be watching. And can I get a perception check to see if there's anyone that seems to be paying? Of course, you said they're paying attention to us, but
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, definitely give me a
suspiciously. So that's a total of let's see, 25.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, you would catch a glimpse and know immediately who this was. He used to serve in the guard, and now he is Teddy's main man. His name is Anton Mulberry, and he has been a little bit nuts since before you left. He lost his wife and daughter, and has been serving Teddy since then. And he's definitely a capable man physically, but mentally you've known him to be unstable. And you see him peek around. He's kind of like standing at the corner of the chapel, and it looks like he was just smoking his pipe now. You can see him there, but a moment ago you could have sworn he had been staring intently at you.
Okay. And Rook doesn't linger upon it, just mentally acknowledges it as the last person maybe walks in, and then he follows in behind them. How do you spell his last name? Morgear?
Morveer. Morveer.
Okay.
And as the rest of you walk in, you will see a very familiar sight to you. The town cathedral, the rows of pews, and the stone floors, and the echoing sounds of footsteps, or any sound really, the scraping of a chair, a cough. You can hear it throughout the whole building. And it's pretty silent here right now. There's no mass going on. So there's nobody actually in the chapel room itself.
Callum just takes a moment to look around this place, the place he spent a lot of his younger years inside of, and kind of sighs, remembering that there's 2 people locked up right now, probably anxious to get out, and goes over to Anton. I'm sorry, I can't remember if you said Anton has a position of power here.
He is like essentially the main muscle behind Teddy. So Teddy has power. Anton does not, but
Gotcha.
arguably, Teddy uses Anton for his
Gotcha.
power.
Well, and I think Anton was out on the street, right?
He wasn't. He always had a house, because there's that it's not a very large. There's no banks coming to take your house per se. But after his wife and child left, people would know him to be more in the bar for a time. Then he was likely to be at his own home until he fell in the service of Teddy.
Okay. considering how long my character Callum has spent here, he would know exactly where the where the cells were, or where the girls would be being kept.
Yeah, you would have a very good idea that it would be downstairs in the basement of the cathedral. And you would also know that the door right before the stairs downstairs would be the door to Teddy's office. So it's basically the chapel area. There's a hallway in the back right. You would go down that hallway. There'd be a door on your right. That would be Patriarchy Theodore's office, and then right past that would be stairs down into the cellars of the church.
All right. In that case, that's exactly where I'm leading everyone. I just kind of like with a nod in a way. It was like, it's back here.
Okay, and you guys would go unimpeded, and you would just click, clock, clock, clock. The sound of your boots hitting the stone floors as you go down the stairs, especially echoes all around like an echo chamber. You could hear it, and as you turn, so it's like an L-shaped stairs. So as you turn left to continue to go down the stairs, somebody seems to hear you, and you hear two women's voices saying, "Hello, hello, somebody there, please let us out."
Temperance, Deliverance, is that you?
And actually, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's actually Cadence and Deliverance.
Cadence. Cadence, Deliverance, is that you?
Yes, it's us. Who is this? And you kind of come down the stairs now and enter into the room. I would think, unless you stopped for any reason.
No, I would have just come back. I would have come all the way down for sure.
Yeah, so now they would go, "Oh, you've returned. Oh, thank the Lords."
Well, don't thank them yet. You guys have accusations on you. We're here to make sure whether they're real or not.
How old are Cadence and Deliverance?
They are in their, so Cadence is the younger sister, and she's about 24, and Deliverance is the older sister. She's about 28.
Okay, and Rook takes out his flask and he spins it off and takes a swig, and then walks over to Deliverance and offers her some of his whiskey.
Deliverance would readily take it. She's a fairly large woman. She has strong arms. She was the town blacksmith before ending up here. She's a very, very capable woman, and you, having lived here, would know her as being a very good hunter and one to kick back more than a few shots of whiskey. And she takes your flask and readily drinks from it, taking a big pull. And, "Oh, thank you, Gareth. It's been too long."
And I just kind of nod over to Cadence, like, and
Cadence,
actually, while she does that,
I'm sorry, that was Deliverance. Well,
okay.
if you look towards Cadence, she shakes her head and says, "No, thank you. That won't help me now."
You're gonna need it.
And actually, with this going on, Callum would take a moment and look them both over. Do they look like they haven't been fed or anything like that, or mistreated?
Give me, or anybody who would like to get involved in that, anyone concerned in with their well-being, eventually can roll me either a insight check or a wisdom check.
Okay.
Okay. So, yes, okay. All right. So most of you, so all of you who glance them up and down to see their current state would see that they were clearly pulled from wherever they were, presumably their homes, in their night shifts. They're wearing essentially a long pajamas, essentially. which everybody in the town would wear. It gets cold at night, and everybody's accustomed to sleeping in this. You'd all recognize it. They've clearly been here a few days. They're dirty. Their faces are dirty. They haven't been allowed access to clean, clearly. They do not look starved.
Okay.
Is there a bucket down here, possibly with water, or a barrel?
Outside their cell, yes. Behind you, there are a few things. It looks like maybe this room is usually used for setup for masses. So there's a bucket of water. There's a bucket of ale, which they use during the ceremony. There are some bowls, and there's a small wooden table.
Okay. Well, as I take my flask back, I finish what's left, and then I just go fill it with ale.
Yes.
And I look over at my party and I say, "What? It's not the first time I've taken the ale from the temple. Come on."
And Deliverance and Cadence, well, I should say Cadence, she comes up to the bars and she looks at Meg especially and says, Meg, I know he is your uncle, but he is fervent and he always has been. Any chance to point out something for the town to be fearful of, for him to protect them from, that's what he does. You know this. As I said, I know he's your uncle, but you can't believe him.
Did you go out? Did you come across werewolves?
We did. Aye. And dwarves. The dwarves are what brought down the silo. But we killed the werewolves.
Did any of them scratch or bite you?
No, nor my sister. And there's been nobody dead.
How long ago was this incident with the werewolves?
This was about 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But you've only been down here a few days, so something in that
Don't we have a way to
meantime.
test them?
We do. I just want to get a little bit
Why
of
are we
answers.
babbling? Why don't we just test them?
Mandrake, can we at least get the whole story before you jump to things?
Well, wouldn't us knowing if the werewolves or not kind of give us an idea of how truthful the story is going to be?
All right, Mandrick, you have a point. And basically, I hold both my hands out, a coin in each one. Ladies, if you could please put your hands through the bars, hold them palm out.
And Deliverance shoots her hand out while Cadence says, kind of fearfully, what do you want us to do? What are you going to do to us?
If you guys are clean, no werewolf, nothing's going to happen.
And Cadence sticks her hand, quaking, through the bars. And as you...
And he just... Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I was
Yes,
going to say, I dropped the coins. Yeah.
And as they hit, both of them close their hands. And Cadence opens hers quickly, and the coin drops to the ground, and you notice a red burn on the palm of her hand. And Cadence opens hers and stares... I'm sorry, Deliverance opens hers and stares at Cadence. Who's watching for their reactions?
Oh yeah, I am.
Yeah, I was looking them dead in the eye as best I could. And
All right, I'm going to keep your previous insight checks because this would be hard to miss, to be honest. And you can clearly tell that Deliverance did not know that Cadence would have this reaction. And Cadence cries, lets out a cry, and she goes back to the back of the room and kind of shakes. And she says, I'm sorry, Deliverance.
Where did he get you?
She reaches with her right hand over her left shoulder and pulls like down the shoulder sleeve of her nightdress, and you can see a like 3-line claw scratch from the point of the shoulder down the shoulder blade.
While she does this, after I see what she's done, I walk over to Deliverance's cell and unlock the lock. You want a thieves' tools roll?
Yeah, because you didn't get the keys from Teddy, so you'd have to pick it. So if you have a kit, give me a roll.
Yeah. So that's a 24.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Are you sure that you want to do that?
So as you're kind of tweaking this, Mandrake calls over your shoulder.
I mean, shouldn't we get the key, and how easy is will the door be able to lock back if you use your picks on it? Because, you know, we might want to let her out and shut it, and be able to lock it. Just throwing that out there.
She's the blacksmith. She probably had a hand in making the lock, so I'm surprised she hasn't undone it by herself yet. Kind of looks over at Deliverance. You could have figured it out in time, right?
And as you say that, you just hear click, and Deliverance just looks at you and goes, "Not in my night shift, Gareth." But then
First thing we should do is get you some proper clothes, I think.
I think she's fine.
I'm sure you do.
Mm-hmm.
she steps through at this moment, the open door, and turns back to Cadence and says, Are you letting us go?
We're letting you go. You don't have any issues.
She turns back to you. I'm gonna roll for this. Okay. She looks back to you and with a sad but level head seems to nod and just I understand. But you'll do it clean, right? You won't let Teddy have her.
We're not done here just yet, so why don't you hang back with us for the moment? And give me just a moment. And Rook is going
pull off
to
my cloak. I'm sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I would imagine it sounds like you're going to give her your cloak, or go for it. Okay, so
I
as
pull off my
Mandrake
cloak and I hand it to her.
wrapping his cloak around her, Rook is going to climb the stairs, and I want to go out and see if I can find maybe a young boy or a. Do they have kids that run errands and stuff in the town, or?
Absolutely, yeah. That's.
And I just kind of poke out the door and I kind of call to one of them and like hand him a gold coin and I say, "Go tell Morgear that Teddy would like to see him in the cellar, please, of the church."
So just so you know, a gold coin would be like literally more than half the town has seen ever. I mean, you might have it because you've been being trained in the auxiliary where people exchange gold and silver, but they'll have never seen anything more than a copper.
All right, I'll give him a copper then.
Okay, yeah, and he'll still be excited. He'll be like, "Whoa, mister!" He doesn't necessarily know you. He's 8. He was like 7 when you left. He's a little kid. So he's just like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure."
Repeat it back to me. What did I say?
Go find Morveer and tell him to come to the cells of the church.
And who sent you?
Gareth.
Teddy.
Sorry, Teddy. Sorry, I got confused. That was me. Not him.
Okay. All right, I pat him on the head and I turn around and kind of duck back into the church because I don't think that many people. I didn't really go out, So I'm trying to be kind of sly about it. And I go back to the cellar.
Okay, so let me just roll this. All right, cool. So you walk back to the cellar, and you see the scene that you had pretty much left. Now the door has been reshut, I believe, I would imagine. Cadence is in there weeping. Deliverance is clearly shook up. Yeah, so you return to find your party.
And with the silence, I kind of step over to... Are we kind of standing far apart, or...?
It's not a large room. Once you take the cells out of the equation, the room is probably only like 12 by 12.
Okay.
So with the stuff in the corner, there's not much room to stand. Everybody would be pretty close to each other.
Okay. We might have some answers coming shortly. You might want to sit down and relax. Did you need to clean up in some privacy? I mean, I can open Teddy's office for you if you'd like.
Man, that would bring the first smile to Callum's face since he found out that this young girl is a werewolf. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. You should get some clothes on.
Well, and you guys have probably realized that Rook doesn't necessarily disrespect the gods, but as far as man goes, yeah. And when we were, growing up, it wasn't, he would sneak in and steal ale out of the church on occasion or whatever. Never stole money from the church.
And as you guys kind of chat about this and kind of just have a little bit of a light laugh, you would hear pretty soon after you had sent him out, it's only been a few minutes, probably 6 or 7 minutes, you'd hear the sound of boots on stone. Now, I don't think you told everybody else, but Rook should probably know who this is.
Yeah, and I kind of move my arms like this, meaning everybody's spread out away from the entryway, and I kind of back up against the wall.
I'm sorry, you're back downstairs though, right?
Yeah, we're in the cellar, and I just
yeah.
kind of parted my arms like to gesture to the party to sort of spread out so they can't see him on the walkway as he's coming down the stairs.
Okay, so then you would hear the footsteps getting louder down the stairs, and then you would hear Anton come in and he would say, Teddy, you called? And his words would get cut off. You called? As he sees Deliverance out of the cell and you four in the room.
And I step in front of the stairs to block him in case he tries to bolt.
Okay. And he looks around nervously. He is a nervous fellow. And he says, what do you want?
Callum gets his attention and it's like, Anton. And as soon as he turns, I chuck a silver coin at him, hoping he'll catch it.
His reflexes are good, and he does. Actually, you know what? I'm going to roll for it. He does catch it. And he looks at it, and he says, this is silver. Man, what have you been up to?
Just working. He didn't have gloves on it, does he? Is
No.
barehanded?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's barehanded.
All right.
Do you want an ale?
That is for the sermon.
We'll get more.
We'll get more. You won't.
Well, you got a silver piece to buy some more. We have some questions for you.
He kind of nods reasonably to that. Questions. Where is Father Teddy? I would prefer he be here for any questioning.
We'll question him later. Oh, we want to talk to you right now.
He sort of puffs up his chest. Well, what do you want to know?
You went on that mission with the werewolves and the dwarves, right?
Yes, It was a dark night.
Okay. Why don't you tell me how things went by your perspective?
So he's going to give you a long story filled with kind of these nervous inconsistencies, re-rememberings of the day. But for the most part, the main points that you can get out is that there were a series of killings by the mines, and they had gone out looking. The first place they went, the first place they passed by was the grain silo, and they actually went to take a peek and found a bunch of grain stealing dwarves who ended up bringing the silo down on his head. Give me an insight point at insight check at this part of his story. Everybody who's listening, somebody should catch this. Rook definitely does. Okay, so this slips under Callum's radar, and it slips under Meg's radar. I'm not sure if Chuck rolled a check yet, but I know for a fact that Rook is going to pick up immediately on this. Go ahead, Chuck, if you want to speak it.
I just got an 8.
Okay, yes. So Rook notices this, clear as day. He continues the story and tells that Deliverance and Cadence helped save his life at that point. And there's more than a little bit of the twinge there of guilt when he thinks about where he is and what's happening in the cells and at that particular sequence of events. But then he goes on to say that they continued to hunt the werewolves and found that it was actually many of the men from the mines themselves that had been infected and had been doing all the hunting. They slayed 3 of them, but apparently Cadence got wounded. And that's just the main points of his story.
So which part did he seem sketchy on?
Just, well, there was sketchy. He seems sketchy in the beginning, remembering the day. He has some mental issues. So the beginning of the day, there's some inconsistencies. And you just notice that twinge of regret and guilt when he told the part about how the grain silo got brought down on him and Cadence, Deliverance, and Teddy helped dig him out.
That was very kind of them. As I stroked my beard and look him in the eye.
He says they were good folk. Were.
They still are.
He looks up at Deliverance and says, why is she out and she in?
She held the silver coin.
Now, are
like
you really that daft?
Father Teddy says it doesn't matter. Being so near her will have led to a corruption of her soul. She is no longer the Deliverance that we knew.
Callum gets up in his face at that. You were up near them too. So is Teddy. Does that mean you should go too?
I have held my distance since. My interactions were limited. Father Teddy says my soul is safe.
That seems convenient. Yeah. But Father Teddy's not in charge of that decision. That's why I threw the silver coin at you.
Father Teddy is in charge of all religious matters.
Incorrect. He gave us leave to take care of this matter.
He grimaces, but he was there.
He's been a lot of places.
And Anton, we need to get this straight right now. Since we've come back from the auxiliary and training with the Dawnhammers, we're in charge of handling any business that has to do with Gloam infection or anything like that.
So, just to throw this out there, this is out of character. Do we know if you can be infected that way or affected by the werewolf?
I'm sorry. Calum knows that you can only be infected by a werewolf with that particular ailment by a bite or scratch from a werewolf. Gloam infection is different, though. You would have all learned about that in the auxiliary because that's your main purpose, is to fight the Gloam. Gloam infection can happen to anybody, and no one really knows how or why or what makes it easier to happen or harder. It sometimes happens and people go a bit mad with the Gloam.
So okay, I just wanted to know that the priest might be manipulating the situation.
Yeah. Good point.
I kind of take Rook aside. I'm kind of still heated up from Anton's comments. I take him aside to a corner. Well, probably not in this room since this whole room is tiny, but just somewhere a little bit out of earshot. You did better in the monster lore classes than I did. Are we 100% sure there's no cure for lycanthropy?
Out of character, remind me, Rory, if I'm not mistaken, the medicine roll, you said that it didn't
Yeah.
seem like there's not a way to disinfect them, if you will.
You know of no cure.
I do not know of one, but that does not mean that we can't try.
Damn.
I'm not trying to be a dick, but the reality is, if we learn from the school and people that have much more experience than us, I don't think we really have the energy or the time to try to find a cure.
You could do that in character if you like. I mean, that could be your character's stance.
Now, that is in character.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I thought
Actually,
you did. Sorry, my fault.
as Mandrake says that, I look to him and I'm like, shh. And I'm looking right at Mandrake, but my eyes kind of dart over to her sister. And I say, let's move upstairs for a moment.
I look at you and I go, I understand completely your concern for the emotional state, but the reality is this is the world we live in. They have to learn to see that.
Oh, Cadence cries harder in the cell.
Oh, Mandrake.
Deliverance. Perhaps you would let me walk with you. We could go to your house, get some clothes for you and Cadence, and then return here.
Deliverance nods to you, but her eyes glance upstairs and she says, "Are you sure it would be good for me to be seen? Most of the village is terrified of us now."
They're terrified of us, too.
Whose cloak does she have on?
Rooks. I'm
Mine.
sorry. No,
Mandrake.
Mandrake's.
Put the hood up. He's bigger than you are. Not by much, but...
And she tries it. She, lifts the hood up. And it's fairly protective. You can... It's a passable hood. I will roll her a... Okay, cool. That's not bad. All right. So, yeah, if you'd like to then... So she would then kind of start to walk towards you, Meg. And take your invitation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to try and take her kind of back to her house and see if I can't get more information on how Teddy has been acting and why they seem to be terrified of him.
Okay. I believe Deliverance would be open with you. It's in her best interest to cooperate with you. So as you walk, she would be fairly quiet until you reached her house. But when you got there, you would, first of all, walk into a house, obviously left in a hurry because they were absconded at night. But you see, the beds ruffled, sheets and blankets thrown off. You also see a pile of bandages next to the bed when you first walk in. Clearly some blood on them. And Deliverance would say, I knew she had been wounded, but she told me it was running through the forest. we helped cleaning it up. I probably should have known. But to answer your question of Teddy and why to be concerned, I mean, in the absence of the Dawnhammers, in your absence, he was the head man here. Everybody listens to him. When he said we were death incarnate, they listened. If he said tomorrow to burn us at the stake, we would have been burned at least before you arrived. So I feel like there's good reason to fear the man. His faith is unquestioning, and unquestioning faith is terrifying.
Did he give you any reason as to why he delayed for us?
I don't believe he did delay for you. I believe he wanted it to be part of the Samhain Mass. I believe he wanted to show the people that we were werewolves under the full moon. But obviously, I wouldn't have turned anyway. He would have looked a fool, of course. Cadence, that is. And she sort of trails off.
Well, we won't let that happen. Your sister, she deserves some dignity. As much as we can manage.
She stifles back a choke and just... Is there really no hope for her at all?
I'm sorry. Not that I know of. Not that any of us know of. Maybe if there were a Dawnhammer here, they might know something more.
She seems to steel herself a bit, and she goes about the room and starts to grab various pieces of clothing, the things that she had come for both herself and for Cadence, and she sort of is basically you get the impression she's trying not to speak to avoid crying. It's pretty upsetting. She's lived with her sister her whole life after their parents left, and you would know that. So they're very close. And but she does gather up her possessions, and she comes back and says, I have to thank you. You've saved my life. I can't say for sure whether they would have burned us, whether or not I turned or not. So you very well may have saved my life. And if you can promise Cadence any sort of dignity, well, that's an improvement than I think she would have gotten. I can stand by you in that, and even if she can't, she would if it was the other way around. She would understand.
And I know we've had our differences, but your fortitude impresses me, as does your resolve. But...
And then she kind of smirks, and she says, and also, I am sorry about the hair. In the ink, that is?
Oh, no, I remember. It took me the better part of 3 weeks to get it all out.
And she kind of, like, now she's embarrassed. She's like, oh, yeah, that was a bad joke.
Well, we can let the bygones be bygones. We have more pressing matters. And no matter what my uncle wants to do, we will handle it.
And so she thanks you again. She nods her head and she pulls the hood back up over her to try to shield her face. And she says, should we bring these back to Cadence?
Well, if I were facing my death, I might want to at least have proper coverage.
She swallows hard but agrees. And you two make your way back through. It's not a long distance. The whole village is not very large anyway, so you're able to make it quickly back to the cathedral. However, as you approach the door, you see your uncle approaching the steps from the other side. And he says, Meg, oh, so good to see you. So you have come to take care of this terrible situation. Oh, it is terrible indeed. And who is this? And Deliverance is not, she's intentionally not looking at him at this moment. Her head is facing the door.
I just like kind of push her towards the like cellar door and I say, "Uncle, come with me. I must speak with you." I'm gonna try and like redirect him the other direction and ignore her. Should I roll or?
You still there, Rory?
You muted?
All right, now's your chance, Taylor. You can kill Ted, and the whole session's over.
What's it called when you kill your uncle? It's not patricide. It's not fratricide.
That's a good question.
Matricide.
It's not regicide because I think that's a king.
That's for kings, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's for kings.
What's it called when you kill a pope? Popicide?
Uh,
I think I heard Rory. Nope.
Oh,
Nope.
we lost him.
All right, we're all level 28, and
We try the silver schlager and it works. And
We transport to Dark Sun, and we're now all godlike beings.
yeah, I got too much metal on me.
That just makes you rich there.
I know I'd be a king. Underneath
What's
all
sad,
these.
though, is you're the only one that would actually go into any kind of upper being because you're the only one with magic.
Oh, right. Got to get into Dark Sun. Google Hangouts has been
We would just
funky.
be epic heroes.
Hangouts has been such a pain the past week or so.
Yeah, I had I can't remember. I think it was the 14th. I had a Pirates game going on, and like all my players dropped at least 3 times. It's freaking.
wow.
Yeah, that's right. It was for Ladies Week. Yeah, and like all the players dropped. Yeah, you were part of it, Chuck.
Fit. Okay. Yeah, I run that game a couple weeks ago. I didn't have no problem. But then the game I played in the day, a couple days after that, I dropped like 10 times.
Oh man. Okay. We're just gonna have to switch as a community to like Discord or something.
But it's so much harder to stream Discord to YouTube.
Oh, that's a good point. I don't even know how you would do that.
Yeah, that's why most everybody uses Hangouts. It's
the easiest way.
You'd have to do something like an XSplit with the way that XSplit uses, what is it, Skype?
Yeah, you can use Skype and XSplit, I think. And Discord has been testing out a video link.
Yeah.
I know, yeah, Discord definitely has a video link going on. But yeah, I would have to learn to use XSplit. I don't know how many people use. I know you two use it since.
I am blindly walking through it because I got a 6-month free thing with my new camera, so I'm checking it out. But it looks pretty cool.
I've just got the free version, and it's pretty excellent.
Yeah.
This is sadly one of my more minimal little overlays because I've been gone all weekend. But
yeah, this morning, after I did some overtime, I started busting out an overlay, and I was like, this could look really cool. So I started figuring out how to do it. Thank you.
Yeah. I wish I could find a cool character art for my character, but I couldn't find a good warrior priest with a bald head and 4 scars across the top of his scalp all the way back. Yep.
Very
really?
specific.
I mean,
yeah, I know.
It just seems so generic. I feel like everybody's drawing that.
Yeah, right? You'd think you could just type that into Google and get exactly that. No, instead I get a bunch of pictures of monks.
Sometimes I actually just go through and I look at images to get me inspiration, to make the character too.
Yeah, I actually had a lot of issue making my character. I didn't figure out my character concept until this morning, to be honest. It was my day off, so I was just chilling out, and I'm like, I could do this. Yeah. I haven't played Gloam enough to to get good at making character concepts for yet.
This is my first game of it.
Ah, me
This is-
too.
Yeah, actually, this is my first game too. I played in one of Rory's games, but my computer, it was during Hurricane Irma, and I live in Florida, so my power went out like half an hour in.
Yeah.
I sent Rory a message. He hasn't responded yet.
He must have had to do something for that long of a time he's taken, because usually it would be he'd be right back.
Right? Yeah. His whole computer
May
blew
have
up.
to reset or something.
Yeah.
Do we want to just go ahead and take like a 5-minute break and hopefully?
If you want to, I'll stay online. I'm on my phone, so if Rory shows back up, I can tell him what we did.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good
well-
idea.
I don't ever go anywhere, so
That works for me. I gotta go check on something anyways. So, yeah. Hopefully he'll be back.
Sounds good.